The gala smelled like old money and fresh lies. Mira Chen stood in the corner of the ballroom, her fingers gripping a champagne flute she hadn't sipped from. She wore a black slip dress she'd thrifted for $20, combat boots hidden under the hem, and a silver chain necklace that had belonged to her mother. Her dark hair was slicked back into a severe bun, eyeliner sharp enough to cut. Everyone else glittered. She glared. Around her, the city's elite floated in designer gowns and tailored suits, their laughter brittle and performative. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across marble floors. Somewhere, a string quartet played something French and forgettable. Mira was here for one reason: revenge. Marcus Voss stood across the room, laughing with a circle of politicians and tech CEOs. He wore a cream-colored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. To everyone here, he was a philanthropist, a visionary, a hero. To Mira, he was the man who destroyed her family. 6 months ago, Voss had tanked her father's startup with a single leaked document, crushing years of work and leaving her dad hospitalized with a stress-induced heart attack. He'd done it to eliminate competition, to absorb the patent her father had spent a decade perfecting. And he'd gotten away with it because men like Marcus Voss always did. Until tonight. Mira's phone buzzed in her clutch. A message from her contact: security sweep in 10. Move now. Her pulse spiked. She'd spent 3 months planning this, gathering evidence, building a case that would ruin Voss the way he'd ruined her family. All she had to do was get to his private office upstairs, plant the USB drive that would leak his communications to every major news outlet, and disappear. Simple. Clean. Justice. She set down her champagne and started moving through the crowd. That's when she collided with him. The impact was sudden. Solid. Her clutch hit the floor, contents scattering. She looked up, ready to apologize, and the words died in her throat. He was tall, maybe 6'2", dressed in an all-black suit that looked like it cost more than her rent. No tie. First 2 buttons undone. Dark hair pushed back carelessly, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Storm gray. Sharp. Haunted. He looked at her like he could see straight through the dress, the plan, the rage she'd been carrying for months. Sorry, Mira said, dropping to her knees to gather her things. You're here alone. It wasn't a question. His voice was low, roughened at the edges. British accent, but faded, like he'd spent years trying to lose it. Does it matter? She shoved lipstick and her phone back into her clutch, fingers shaking. He crouched down, picked up something she'd missed. Her USB drive. The one loaded with Voss's emails, financial records, proof of industrial espionage. Their eyes met. This isn't makeup, he said quietly. Mira's heart stopped. Give it back. Who are you planning to destroy? None of your business. She reached for it. He held it away. Marcus Voss. He said it like a statement. Like he already knew. The music swelled around them. Couples spun past, oblivious. Mira's throat tightened. How did you know? Because I'm here to destroy him too. The words hung between them like a dare. Before Mira could respond, a hand clamped on her shoulder. She turned. A security guard, thick-necked and suspicious, loomed over her. Miss, I'm going to need to see your invitation. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't have one. She'd slipped in through the kitchen, bribed a server, counted on chaos and champagne to keep her invisible. She's with me. The stranger stood, his presence suddenly commanding. He tucked the USB drive into his pocket and extended his hand to the guard. Ezra Kane. I believe you'll find both our names on the list. The guard's expression shifted. Recognition. Maybe fear. Mr. Kane. Of course. My apologies. He walked away. Mira stared at the man. Ezra Kane. She knew that name. Everyone did. Tech billionaire. Venture capitalist. Known for hostile takeovers and cutthroat deals. He'd been on the cover of Forbes last month, standing on a rooftop in Hong Kong, looking like he owned the skyline. You just lied for me, she said. You were about to get arrested. Why would you care? Ezra looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable crossing his face. Because watching you crash and burn would be a waste. I don't need your help. No. He pulled the USB drive from his pocket, held it between them. But you need this. And I need what you know about Voss. I don't know you. Then get to know me. He leaned closer. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. You have 10 minutes before security sweeps this floor. You can walk out of here empty-handed and watch Voss win again, or you can take a risk. What kind of risk? His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The kind that might save us both. Across the room, Marcus Voss laughed at someone's joke. The sound echoed, hollow and victorious. Mira looked at Ezra Kane. At the USB drive in his hand. At the storm in his eyes that matched the one in her chest. What do you want from me? Marry me. The world tilted. Mira's breath caught. What? Tonight. Right now. Marry me, and I'll help you destroy Voss. Refuse, and you'll leave here with nothing but questions. You're insane. Maybe. He held out his hand. But I'm the only chance you've got. The string quartet hit a crescendo. The chandeliers blazed. And Mira Chen, standing in a room full of people who'd never looked at her twice, made a choice that would ruin everything. She took his hand. They left through a side exit, the kind built for celebrities and people running from something. The night air hit Mira's skin like cold water, shocking her system back online. A black car waited at the curb. No driver. Ezra opened the passenger door, gestured for her to get in. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk without an audience. Mira hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger. She didn't know this man. Didn't trust him. But he had her USB drive, and without it, months of work meant nothing. She got in. Ezra drove in silence, his hands steady on the wheel. They cut through downtown, past neon signs and late-night diners, until the city thinned out and the buildings gave way to hills. He pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner called Rosie's. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. 3 other cars sat abandoned in the lot. A diner, Mira said flatly. You're a billionaire and you brought me to a diner. You want privacy or Michelin stars? He killed the engine, looked at her. Choose one. They walked inside. The place smelled like burnt coffee and hash browns. A waitress with tired eyes pointed them to a corner booth. Mira slid in, her back to the wall. Old habit. Ezra sat across from her, his posture loose but his eyes alert. The waitress brought menus. Ezra ordered black coffee. Mira asked for the same. Talk, she said the second they were alone. Why do you want to marry me? And why do you hate Marcus Voss? Ezra leaned back, his gaze steady. 3 years ago, Voss funded a biotech company I was building. It was revolutionary. Gene therapy for rare diseases. We were 6 months from human trials. His jaw tightened. Then he pulled funding without warning, bought out my partners, and filed patents under his own name. Buried the research to protect his pharmaceutical investments. People died, Mira said quietly. A lot of people. His voice was flat. Controlled. But she could see the rage underneath, carefully locked away. I tried legal routes. Filed lawsuits. He crushed every single one. So I started looking for another way. Revenge. Justice. He met her eyes. There's a difference. Mira thought of her father in the hospital, hooked up to monitors, his life's work stolen. Not to me. The waitress brought their coffee. Steam curled between them. You still haven't explained the marriage thing, Mira said, wrapping her hands around the mug. Ezra pulled a folder from inside his jacket, slid it across the table. Marcus Voss has a daughter. Celeste. She's engaged to a senator's son. Big wedding planned for next month. Political alliance. Media coverage. The works. Mira opened the folder. Photos of a blonde woman in designer clothes, always smiling for cameras. Articles about charity galas and society events. I don't care about his daughter's wedding. You should. Ezra tapped one of the photos. Celeste's trust fund activates when she marries. $2 billion. Voss set it up years ago as a strategic move, keeping her dependent on him until she locked down the right match. But there's a clause. What clause? If she's not married by her 30th birthday, the money goes to charity. A foundation Voss controls. He leaned forward. She turns 30 in 6 weeks. Understanding hit like a freight train. You want to marry me to trigger some kind of legal loophole. Not a loophole. Leverage. Ezra's eyes darkened. I'm Voss's biggest competitor. If I announce I'm married, suddenly and publicly, it throws his entire narrative into chaos. The media will spiral. Questions about why I'm settling down, whether it's a business move, what it means for his empire. That's not enough to destroy him. No, but it's enough to distract him. Ezra pulled out a second folder. While he's focused on damage control, we use your evidence. We leak everything. Financial crimes, industrial espionage, patent theft. We time it perfectly, hit him when he's vulnerable, and watch him collapse. Mira stared at the folders, her mind racing. It was insane. Calculated. Brilliant. Why me? She asked. You could marry anyone. Because you have the evidence. And because you understand what it costs. His voice softened, just barely. Everyone else would ask for something. Money. Fame. A piece of the empire. You just want him to burn. He wasn't wrong. Mira picked up her coffee, took a sip. It was terrible. Perfect. What do you get out of this? She asked. Besides watching Voss lose everything? Ezra's mouth curved. There's a company he's trying to acquire. Medical AI. If his reputation tanks, the board will reject his bid. I'll swoop in, buy it myself, and use it to finish what I started 3 years ago. Saving lives. Something like that. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the deal settling between them. What happens after? Mira asked. After we destroy him. What happens to us? Whatever we want. Ezra's eyes held hers. The marriage is real enough to fool the media and hold up legally. But it's temporary. 6 months. Maybe a year. We play the part, we execute the plan, and then we walk away. Clean break. Clean break, he confirmed. Mira thought about her father. About Marcus Voss laughing at that gala. About the months she'd spent alone, plotting, burning with the need for justice. And she thought about the man across from her. Ezra Kane. A stranger who looked at her like she mattered. Like she was dangerous. Like she was worth the risk. One condition, she said. Name it. You don't lie to me. Ever. No matter how bad the truth is. Ezra extended his hand across the table. Deal. Mira shook it. His grip was firm, warm, steady. So how do we do this? She asked. There's no way we can get legally married tonight. Ezra smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger. Reckless. Who said anything about legal? He pulled out his phone, made a call. 3 minutes later, a man showed up at the diner. Middle-aged, wearing a Hawaiian shirt and holding a laminated certificate. This is Danny, Ezra said. He's an ordained minister. Technically. Danny grinned. Got my license online. $79. Best investment I ever made. Mira stared. You cannot be serious. It's not legally binding, Ezra said. But it'll look real enough for photos. We'll file the actual paperwork tomorrow, make it official before the media catches wind. This is insane. You already said that. Ezra stood, offered her his hand. You in or out? The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The waitress refilled someone's coffee 3 booths away. Outside, the city breathed, indifferent and infinite. Mira took his hand and stood. Let's do it. 10 minutes later, she was married. Danny pronounced them husband and wife in a corner booth of Rosie's diner, with the waitress and a drunk trucker as witnesses. Ezra kissed her, brief and businesslike, his lips warm against hers. It meant nothing. It changed everything. As they walked out into the parking lot, Mira's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I know what you're planning. Walk away now or you'll regret it. She showed Ezra. His expression hardened. Voss. Maybe. Or someone working for him. Ezra looked at her, something dark and determined in his eyes. Then we move faster. He opened the car door for her, and as Mira slid inside, she realized she'd just signed up for a war. And she had no idea if they'd both survive it. Ezra's penthouse was glass and steel, suspended 40 floors above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a painting. Everything inside was sharp angles and cold surfaces. No photographs. No personal touches. Just expensive furniture and the kind of silence that felt deliberate. Mira stood in the living room, still wearing her thrifted dress and combat boots, feeling wildly out of place. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Usually." Ezra shrugged off his jacket, tossed it over a chair. He'd rolled up his sleeves somewhere between the diner and the elevator, revealing forearms marked with faint scars. "Guest room is down the hall. Second door on the left." "We're not sharing a room?" He looked at her, something flickering in his expression. "This is a business arrangement, Mira. Not a romance." "Right." She tried to ignore the weird twist in her chest. "Obviously." Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Last warning." Ezra noticed. "Block it." "What if it's important?" "It's psychological warfare. Voss wants you paranoid." He moved to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water. "He's trying to make you second-guess everything. Don't give him the satisfaction." Mira took the glass he offered, their fingers brushing. The contact lasted half a second too long. "When do we go public?" she asked. "Tomorrow morning. I've already scheduled a press conference." Ezra leaned against the counter, his eyes steady on hers. "We'll announce the marriage. Frame it as spontaneous. Love at first sight. The media will eat it up. And Voss will lose his mind." "Exactly." A ghost of a smile. "While he's scrambling, we leak your evidence. Time it for maximum impact. By noon, his entire empire will be under investigation." It was a good plan. Brutal. Efficient. Everything Mira had wanted. So why did her stomach twist with something that felt like doubt? "You should get some sleep," Ezra said. "It's going to be a long day tomorrow." Mira nodded, started toward the guest room. Then stopped. "Ezra?" He looked up. "Why do you really hate him? It's not just about the company, is it?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My sister. She was part of the clinical trials. When Voss pulled funding, we lost access to the treatment. She died 6 months later." The words hit like a physical blow. "I'm sorry," Mira whispered. "Don't be." His voice was cold. Controlled. "Just help me make him pay." She wanted to say something else. Something that mattered. But the look in his eyes stopped her. So she just nodded and walked away. The guest room was as impersonal as the rest of the apartment. White walls. Gray sheets. A view of the city that never stopped glowing. Mira lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She thought about her father. About Ezra's sister. About the man in the other room, carrying a grief so heavy it had turned him into stone. Somewhere around 3 a.m., she heard him moving around. Restless. She got up, padded down the hall in bare feet and an oversized shirt. He was on the balcony, leaning against the railing. The city stretched below, a carpet of light. He'd changed into dark joggers and a white t-shirt, his hair messy from running his hands through it. "Can't sleep?" Mira asked, stepping outside. "Never can." He didn't look at her. "You." Too much adrenaline. She joined him at the railing, the night air cool against her skin. "Tell me about her." "Your sister." Ezra was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Lena. She was brilliant. Wanted to be a doctor. Save the world, one patient at a time. His voice cracked, just barely. "She was 23 when she died." "How old were you?" 26. He finally looked at her. "Same age you are now." Something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. The weight of carrying loss at an age when you were supposed to be invincible. "I'm sorry I asked you to do this," Ezra said quietly. "It's selfish. Dragging you into my war." "You didn't drag me. I chose this." Mira turned to face him fully. "And for what it's worth, I think your sister would be proud." His throat worked. He looked away, jaw tight. They stood in silence, the city breathing below them. Mira wanted to reach out, touch his shoulder, offer some kind of comfort. But she didn't know how. Didn't know if he'd want it. "We should go inside," Ezra said finally. "Big day tomorrow." They walked back into the apartment. At the hallway, Ezra stopped. "Mira?" She turned. Thank you for listening. Before she could respond, he disappeared into his room. Mira stood in the dark hallway, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This was supposed to be simple. A business transaction. Revenge, clean and calculated. But nothing about Ezra Kane was simple. And she was starting to realize that might be a problem. The next morning, they stood in front of a wall of cameras. Mira wore a white button-down shirt tucked into black jeans, her hair down for once, minimal makeup. Ezra had insisted she look approachable. Real. He stood beside her in a navy suit, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. The touch felt electric. Possessive. Ladies and gentlemen, Ezra began, his voice steady. I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Mira Chen. The room exploded. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Myra's heart hammered against her ribs. How did you meet? When did this happen? Is this a publicity stunt? Ezra smiled, the picture of a man in love. We met at a charity event 2 weeks ago. I knew within 5 minutes she was the one. He was a good liar. Convincing. Almost too convincing. Mira forced herself to smile, to play the part. It was unexpected. But sometimes the best things are. More questions. More flashes. Ezra's hand never left her back. Then, from the crowd, Mr. Kane, there are rumors that Marcus Voss is planning a hostile takeover of your company. Is this marriage a strategic move? Ezra's expression didn't change. This marriage has nothing to do with business. Then you're not concerned about Voss? I'm concerned about building a life with my wife. He looked at Mira, and for a second, she almost believed him. Everything else is noise. They wrapped up the conference, escaped to a back room. The second the door closed, Mira exhaled. That was intense. That was the easy part. Ezra checked his phone, frowned. Now we wait for Voss to react. They didn't have to wait long. An hour later, Ezra's phone rang. He answered, put it on speaker. Kane. Marcus Voss's voice was smooth, dangerous. Congratulations on your sudden marriage. How romantic. I'm a romantic guy. Cut the act. Voss's tone sharpened. I know what you're doing. And I know who your little bride really is. Myra's blood ran cold. Mira Chen, Voss continued. Daughter of David Chen, the man who tried to steal my research. She's been planning something for months. And you just handed her the perfect platform. Ezra's eyes met Myra's. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't you? Voss laughed, cold and sharp. I've been watching her. I know about the USB drive. I know about the files she thinks will destroy me. Myra's hands clenched into fists. Here's what's going to happen, Voss said. You're going to drop whatever little scheme you've cooked up. Both of you. Or I'll make sure Myra's father never leaves that hospital bed. The line went dead. Myra's knees nearly gave out. He's threatening my dad. Ezra's face had gone stone cold. He's bluffing. What if he's not? Then we move faster. Ezra grabbed his laptop, started typing. We leak everything now. Before he can follow through. But my father. We'll be fine. I'll put security on him. Round-the-clock protection. Ezra looked up, his eyes fierce. Trust me, Mira. We're not backing down. She wanted to trust him. Wanted to believe they could win this. But doubt had started to creep in, cold and insidious. What if they'd underestimated Marcus Voss? What if this war destroyed more than just him? Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Your father's condition has worsened. Please come immediately. Myra's world tilted. She looked at Ezra, her voice breaking. I have to go. I'll come with you. No. She grabbed her bag, hands shaking. You stay. Leak the files. Finish what we started. Mira. Just do it. She ran. But as she burst out of the building into the blinding sunlight, one thought consumed her. She'd made a deal with a stranger. Married him. Trusted him. And now everything she loved was on the line. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Mira ran through the corridors, her combat boots echoing against linoleum. She burst into her father's room, heart hammering. He was awake. Pale, tubes running from his arms, but awake. Dad. She rushed to his bedside, grabbed his hand. Mira. His voice was weak, but his eyes were alert. Worried. What are you doing here? I'm fine. The nurse said it was just a false alarm. A false alarm. The realization hit like ice water. Voss hadn't touched her father. He'd just made her think he had. Psychological warfare. Exactly like Ezra said. I need to go, Mira said, kissing her father's forehead. I'll explain everything later. Just rest. She called Ezra on her way out. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Dread pooled in her stomach. By the time she made it back to the penthouse, the sun had started to set, turning the city gold and orange. She used the keycard Ezra had given her, stepped inside. The apartment was dark. Empty. Ezra? No response. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, rooftop. Alone. Every instinct screamed trap. But she went anyway. The rooftop was windswept and vast, the skyline stretching in every direction. Ezra stood at the edge, his back to her, hands in his pockets. You're okay, Mira breathed, relief flooding through her. He turned. His expression stopped her cold. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For this. Marcus Voss stepped out from behind a ventilation unit, flanked by 2 security guards. He wore a charcoal suit, his silver hair gleaming in the dying light. Hello, Mira, Voss said, his voice smooth. Victorious. Thank you for making this so easy. Mira's blood turned to ice. She looked at Ezra. What is this? Business, Ezra said, and his voice was different now. Colder. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. You're working with him. The words felt surreal. Impossible. This whole time, you've been working with him. Not the whole time. Ezra's jaw tightened. Just since this morning. Voss smiled, predatory and pleased. Mr. Kane and I came to an understanding. You see, I offered him something far more valuable than revenge. I offered him his company back. Full funding for his medical research. Everything he lost 3 years ago. Mira felt like she was falling. And all he had to do was betray me. All he had to do, Voss corrected, was hand over your evidence and walk away. Which he did. Very cooperatively, I might add. You son of a, Mira lunged for Ezra, but the guards caught her arms, held her back. Ezra didn't flinch. Didn't look away. I told you this was a business arrangement. Nothing personal. You lied to me. Her voice broke. You looked me in the eye and promised you wouldn't lie. Something flickered in his expression. Regret, maybe. Or just annoyance. I did what I had to do to survive, he said flatly. You should understand that better than anyone. Voss stepped closer, his presence suffocating. Your father's company. Your little revenge plot. It was all very touching, Mira. But you were never going to win. People like you don't beat people like me. Then why are you here? Mira spat. If I'm so powerless, why bother with this whole performance? Because I wanted you to understand something. Voss leaned in, his voice dropping. I don't just destroy my enemies. I break them. I make them watch everything they love crumble. And then I walk away without a scratch. He straightened, brushed invisible lint from his sleeve. The marriage is annulled as of an hour ago. Kane pulled some strings. You're free to go back to your sad little life. Just stay away from me and mine. Or next time, it won't be a false alarm at the hospital. The guards released her. Mira stumbled, her legs barely holding her upright. Voss walked toward the exit, his guards following. He paused at the door, looked back at Ezra. Pleasure doing business with you, Kane. I'll have my lawyers send over the contracts. Then he was gone. Mira and Ezra stood alone on the rooftop, the wind howling between them. Why? Mira's voice was raw. Why did you do this? Because I'm not a hero. Ezra finally met her eyes. I'm not the person you wanted me to be. I'm just a guy trying to survive in a world that doesn't care who it crushes. You had a choice. No, I didn't. His voice hardened. Voss had evidence linking me to securities fraud from 5 years ago. Fake evidence, but convincing enough to put me in prison for a decade. He threatened to leak it if I didn't cooperate. So you sacrificed me. I chose to live. He stepped closer, and she saw it now. The cracks in his armor. The exhaustion in his eyes. I'm not proud of it. But I'd do it again. Mira's hands clenched into fists. I trusted you. That was your mistake. Ezra's expression shuddered. Trust is a luxury people like us can't afford. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain tearing through her chest. Instead, she just laughed. Cold. Bitter. You know what the worst part is, she said. I actually believed you were different. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd found someone who understood. Who gave a damn. I did give a damn. His voice cracked, just barely. That's why this hurts. Don't. Mira backed away, shaking her head. Don't pretend this means anything to you. You made your choice. Now live with it. She turned to leave. Mira. She stopped, didn't look back. I know you hate me, Ezra said quietly. But there's something you need to know. Voss didn't just take your evidence. He has copies of your father's research. The real files. The ones that prove your dad invented the technology Voss stole. Her heart stopped. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. A pause. The files are in Voss's private server. Encrypted. Nearly impossible to access. Nearly? There's a backdoor. I found it months ago when I was planning my own takedown. He pulled something from his pocket, tossed it to her. A USB drive. Different from the one she'd lost. What is this? Access codes. Blueprints. Everything you need to break into his system and retrieve your father's work. Ezra's eyes met hers, and for a second, she saw the man she'd met at the gala. The one who'd looked at her like she mattered. I can't help you, but I can give you the tools to help yourself. Mira stared at the USB drive in her hand, her mind racing. This doesn't make us even, she said. I know. I'll never forgive you. I know that too. He smiled, sad and broken. But maybe you'll survive this. And maybe that's enough. He walked past her, toward the exit. Ezra. He stopped. Was any of it real? Her voice was barely a whisper. The diner. The rooftop. The way you looked at me. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you think? And he left. Mira stood alone on the rooftop, the USB drive clutched in her hand, the city sprawling below her like a battlefield. She'd been betrayed. Destroyed. Left with nothing but a stranger's guilt and a slim chance at redemption. But she wasn't done. Not even close. Voss had broken her. Now she'd show him what broken people could do. 3 weeks later, Mira sat in a coffee shop across from Voss Tower, her laptop open, the USB drive Ezra had given her plugged in. She wore a gray hoodie, ripped jeans, and her mother's silver chain. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. Just exhaustion and determination. She'd spent every night since the rooftop learning to code, studying encryption, teaching herself to navigate systems she'd never touched before. She'd barely slept. Barely eaten. But she'd gotten good. Good enough. On her screen, lines of code cascaded like rain. She'd breached Voss's firewall an hour ago, slipped past his security like a ghost. Now she was inside, downloading her father's files. Proof of everything Voss had stolen. The download bar crawled forward. 90%. 95. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. Don't finish it. Mira's pulse spiked. She looked around the coffee shop. No one seemed to be watching. Another text. Meet me at the warehouse on 5th. Alone. Or I send everything to the FBI and your father goes down with Voss. Her blood ran cold. It was a trap. Obviously. But if there was even a chance someone had dirt on her father, she couldn't risk it. She grabbed her laptop, the download at 98%, and ran. The warehouse was abandoned, windows shattered, graffiti covering the walls. Mira stepped inside, her heart hammering. The space was massive, shadows pooling in corners, the ceiling open to the night sky. Hello. Her voice echoed. Ezra stepped out from behind a shipping container. He wore all black, his face drawn, exhaustion carved into every line. You came, he said. You threatened my father. I lied. He moved closer. No one has anything on your dad. I just needed you here. Why? Because Voss knows what you're doing. He has people watching you. And when you finish that download, he's going to come for you. Let him. Mira's jaw set. I'm not afraid anymore. You should be. Ezra's eyes were fierce. Desperate. Voss doesn't just ruin people, Mira. He erases them. And if you go through with this, you're signing your own death warrant. Then I die knowing I did something that mattered. Damn it, Mira. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Scared. You think I betrayed you because I didn't care? I did it because I couldn't watch him destroy you too. You don't get to play hero now. Her voice shook. You made your choice. I made the wrong choice. The words came out raw, broken. I've spent 3 weeks trying to fix it. Trying to find a way to protect you. But there isn't one. Not while Voss is still breathing. Then help me take him down. I can't. He has lawyers. Security. Politicians in his pocket. Even with your evidence, he'll walk. Not if I make it public. Not if I give it to every news outlet, every journalist, every person who's ever been screwed by him. Mira stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You taught me that. Hit him when he's distracted. Make it impossible to hide. Ezra stared at her, something like admiration crossing his face. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll die free. Footsteps echoed through the warehouse. They both turned. Marcus Voss walked in, flanked by 4 armed guards. He looked calm, untouchable. How touching, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. The 2 lovebirds reunited. I assume you're here to convince her to stop, Kane? Ezra's hands curled into fists. Actually, I'm here to tell you I'm done playing your games. Voss raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? The security's fraud evidence. The blackmail. Ezra pulled out his phone, held it up. I just sent everything to the SEC. Your fake documents. The real financial records proving you fabricated the charges. By morning, you'll be the one under investigation. Voss's expression darkened. You just destroyed yourself. Maybe, but I'm taking you with me. Ezra looked at Mira, and in his eyes, she saw something she'd never expected. Sacrifice. Redemption. Love. Run, he said. What? Run. Now. The guards moved. Ezra lunged, tackling the nearest one. Chaos erupted. Mira didn't think. She ran. Behind her, shouts. Gunfire. The sound of bodies hitting concrete. She burst out of the warehouse into the night, her laptop clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She didn't stop running until she reached a 24-hour internet cafe 3 blocks away. Her hands shook as she opened her laptop. The download was complete. Every file. Every piece of evidence. She uploaded it to a cloud server. Then another. And another. Made copies. Sent them to journalists she'd researched, activists she trusted, every platform that would listen. Within an hour, the story broke. Marcus Voss. Industrial espionage. Patent theft. Financial crimes spanning decades. The internet exploded. By dawn, federal agents were raiding Voss Tower. Mira sat in that cafe, watching the news on a cracked TV screen, her body numb. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Mira. Ezra's voice. Rough. Alive. You're okay. Relief flooded through her. Barely. Voss is in custody. His empire's collapsing. You did it. We did it. A pause. I'm leaving the city. Going somewhere quiet. Start over. Where? Does it matter? She thought about that. About the man she'd married in a diner. The one who'd betrayed her. The one who'd sacrificed everything to give her a chance. No, she said softly. It doesn't. Will you be okay? He asked. I don't know. But I'm free. That's enough. Mira? Yeah. I'm sorry. For everything. She closed her eyes, tears spilling over. I know. Maybe in another life, Ezra said quietly, we could have been something real. Maybe. Her voice broke. But this life is complicated enough. Yeah, it is. They sat in silence for a moment, 2 broken people connected by a phone line and a war they'd survived. Goodbye, Ezra. Goodbye, Mira. The line went dead. Mira set down her phone, walked out of the cafe into the rising sun. The city was waking up, indifferent and infinite. Somewhere, her father was safe. Somewhere, Marcus Voss was answering for his crimes. And somewhere, a man she'd loved for all of 5 minutes was disappearing into a life she'd never be part of. She thought about calling him back, asking where he was going, asking if she could come too. But she didn't. Because some stories don't end with happily ever after. Some stories end with survival. And sometimes, survival is the only victory that matters. 6 months later, Mira stood in her father's new workshop, watching him work on the prototype that would save thousands of lives. The research Voss had stolen was finally back where it belonged. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just one word, proud. She smiled, typed back, likewise. The message showed as delivered. Then deleted. Mira slipped her phone into her pocket, looked out at the city beyond the window. She'd been married once. For about 3 days. To a man who'd betrayed her and saved her in equal measure. She'd learned that trust was complicated. That love could be dangerous. That sometimes the people who hurt you are the same ones who set you free. And she learned that revenge wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about surviving long enough to prove they couldn't destroy you. Somewhere out there, Ezra Kane was living a new life. Building something good from the ashes. And so was she. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The end.